Okay, if you want to open your Bible to your index and find the book of Isaiah and the book of Hosea, just find those two openings, and I want to just look at a couple of things here. Isaiah and Hosea. Isaiah chapter 5. Yeah, just find Isaiah chapter 5.
Isaiah chapter 5.
Isaiah chapter 5. Okay, I'm like something that Jamie mentioned. I think that some things that was religiously spoke of and accepted as religious ideologies didn't make sense for me, and so that created in me questions, and so I think that's been a big query in my life, is I constantly ask questions, and that's still true. I still do that same thing, so I'm constantly asking either myself or God or source or whatever you would call it questions, because I want to know. You know, it's sort of like, and I'm going to look at that passage in just a little bit. Pilate said to Jesus, well, what is the truth? Mm-hmm. And that has always rattled me or stirred me or provoked me to think, what is the truth? Mm-hmm. You know, and to say that one certain religious group has the handle of all truth has never settled well for me. And I realize that would be very controversial in many religious circles. Some religious circles will accept all religions and their facets of truth, saying that they all have some semblance of truth, and I would agree with that. I would say, yeah, that because truth has, in my opinion, many levels. Yeah. I don't think any person has all of the truth. I don't think that's a possibility, period, because I think truth, it's like if I was standing on the mountain watching a sunset and you were standing behind my back and you were looking at it seemed like it was growing darker, and I said, wow, look at the sunset, it's beautiful, and you couldn't see it, you'd say, no, it's getting dark. So you would have the facet of truth that you could see. Both would be correct, but contrary. And so that's been my understanding, that truth has sometimes contradictions in it, and you know, and I use that word, conundrum. Truth is a conundrum. It's not either or. Many times it's both and that sometimes is not acceptable. You know, people who their idea or their way is the only way. You know, of course, I think we have all been taught that to some degree, not maybe more or less, but to some degree that's basically what we have all been taught. So I want to read you something here. The study of magic or wisdom included every branch of science, the metaphysical as well as the physical, psychological, and physiological, in their common and occult phases. Now, there's two words that aren't used correctly in the Christian community that I know, and that's the word cult and the word occult. And if I say either of those words, what would you think? What would be your definition? Like, for instance, if I said the word cult, what would be your immediate thought or definition?
Mine would be Satanism.
Satanism, okay. I think that would be, what would you, Beverly, what would you think? Cult.
I would think that it was someone that went off the track on one idea.
Went off the track on an idea or something like that. What would anybody else? Cult.
Commune.
A what?
A commune.
A commune is called. A cult is a system of religious worship. I mean, if you want to know the true definition, just look it up. And I find that most everybody that I know, when you hear the word, do not have a clue what the true definition of it is. As a matter of fact, Baptistism is a cult because it is a system of religious worship. That's all a cult is. It's not a right one or a wrong one. It's any system of of religious worship. All right, let me do the same thing with occult. What about the word occult? What would you think about that? Singular?
Yeah.
Singular? Actually, occult means beyond the boundaries of knowledge. So the word occult means to go beyond the boundaries of common knowledge. In other words, anything that is an occult deals with secrecy. So a lot of the things that Jesus taught was occultish. Why would I say that? Because in Mark 4, when Jesus was teaching the parable of the sower, the disciples were asking questions about it. You remember that? They were asking a lot of questions. Well, what about this? What do you mean by that? And then he said this. He said, well, to those of you who will come in the house, I will explain the mystery. You remember that? Mark chapter 4, it's very clear. He said, if you'll come in other words, he wasn't going to explain it to the masses or the multitude. He was only going to explain it to those who really wanted to inquire enough to know. So he said, if you'll come in the house, I'll. Do y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Okay, I just want to make sure it's Mark chapter 4. The sower sows the word. This the parable of the seed and the word. And he said, I'll explain that to you. And so, you know, Jesus had 3 who was an inner circle. He had 12 who was an outer circle. And then he had the masses. And to none of them did he say the same things. And so the mysteries are the things that are secret were known as occult. Occult knowledge. O-C-C-U-L-T. But then a cult was any system of religious worship. You know, and I thought that's kind of strange when I remember years ago when I first started my journey, I thought exactly the same things as you just said for your definitions. And the reason I did was I read a book by Dr. Walter Martin called The Mysteries of the Occult or something like that. And basically he said in that book the same things that you just said. So you tied the word cult, C-U-L-T, or the word occult to satanic or demonic or things that you wouldn't know in our circles. And I thought, wow, how could it be that way? Yes,
And then they warned, like in the Lutheran and the Catholic, they warned you not to go into the occult.
Exactly.
It was taboo. It's not
Taboo.
a place you're supposed to investigate or anything.
Yes.
No wonder.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing to me, and if you have your phone, you can Google and pull up your Webster's Dictionary and just look at it. And the Webster's Dictionary, you know, I'm talking about, go back to the whatever the early edition was, 1800s or 1700s, whenever Webster put that dictionary together, and he defined those words. It's amazing to me that we never took the time to look up the word to just simply see what the word says. Because I read a lot of books that mention that. And so, and some of them mention it in the ideas that you just said. Especially hardcore religious books. But when you read books that deal with mysteries, they use it in its correct and proper way. Because when they begin to talk about the cults, different cults, they're talking about religious forms of worship. Not right or wrong. There's not any right or wrong to that. Like, for instance, a religious form of worship that would leave out instrumental music and just use the voice and harmony. And that's a cult. That is a religious form of worship. It's not right or it's not wrong. As a matter of fact, you know, that's exactly what we experienced there when we went to that singing. They did not have any musical instruments at all, and they had was the choir all men? It was all men, wasn't it? Matter of fact, now that I think back, the choir was all men, and there must have been how many? 50?
Oh, yeah.
50 men?
Sure.
And I'm telling you, the beauty and the professionalism that come out of those voices, how the director blended those voices together was phenomenal. And then they had wasn't it two ladies, or three different ladies quartets of 4 women each that did all the different harmony parts. And I'm telling you, and it's beautiful. No instruments whatsoever. That's a cult. It is a form of religious worship. And so anyway, when I'm reading some of these things, like I read or conveying something to you or to anybody who see this on a video or listen to it on a CD or however they get it, and I say certain things, and sometimes people don't hear what I say, because if I'm using the word cult or occult, I'm using it by its original definition, not by what we've all heard. So when I hear this, and I hear in their common and occultic phases, I'm not hearing something that's demonic or of the devil. I'm just hearing it as a religious form of worship. Because there are many, and many of them do hold truth. Not all truth, just truth. They got some truth. So I'll read this again. The study of magic or wisdom included every branch of science, the metaphysical as well as the physical, the physiological and the psychological in their common and occult phases. And the study of alchemy was universal, for it was both a physical and a spiritual science. The ancients studied nature under its double aspect, and the claim is that they discovered secrets which the modern physicist who studies but the dead forms of things cannot unlock. I remember hearing something by Sadhguru, and he was talking about how they dissect a frog to try to find out what's in it or what makes it live, and he was condemning that. He said, how are they going to find out what's in something that's living from something that's dead? He made some really good points. I thought, wow, I never thought of it that way. And this is what he's saying. How are they going to unlock the mysteries in life by trying to study something that's dead? There are regions of nature which will never yield their mysteries to the scientist armed only with mechanical apparatuses. The ancients studied the outer forms of nature, but in relation to the inner life. Hence, they saw more than we and were better able to read meaning in what they saw. They regarded everything in nature as a materialization of spirit. Now see, this is how I most always, well, I would have to say always now, view the Scripture. I view the Scripture not in a historical fashion, but I view it in a fashion of both metaphysical or mythological stories that combine both spirit and nature for one meaning. I mean, that's how I personally read it. So I get different things from it than what many times you would get. They regard everything in nature as a materialization of spirit. And you know, that to me, that's a real conundrum that's a powerful truth. A real conundrum that's a powerful, it's something that seems to be so opposite that both ends of the spectrum are true. In other words, spiritual things that we look at like as a celestial place of bliss and peace in the spirit is only found and manifest in the materialization of it. See, you have to think about that. You mean to say that you think that the material, the literal, is the real? Absolutely. The spiritualization of it is the idea of it. Now, is your idea real? Yes, it is as an idea. Does your idea have any materialization or any manifestation? Absolutely not. Not unless you bring it forth. And not unless you make it actually true. How do you do that? You materialize it. So if God is the center, the core, and actually in some monads, some ideologies, this is how they would view God. That's not very big. It's just a dot. But the dot is the idea of all that is. So that all that is, whether it's materialized as a universe, as a galaxy, as a planet, as a human being, was first an idea. But do you want to just go back to the idea? That's where people get confused, I think. That's where they think about going to heaven. You know, if I can go to heaven, heaven is a better place. Not understanding what that the meaning of that word, again, going back to the word cult or occult, not understanding the meaning of that word causes tremendous confusion. Okay, so the ancients studied the outer forms of nature, but in relationship to the inner life. Hence, they saw more than we and were better able to read meaning into what they saw. They regarded everything in nature as a materialization of spirit. Thus, they were able to find an adequate ground for the harmonization of science and religion. So they weren't pitted against each other. You know who did that, don't you? You know who pitted science against religion? The Catholic Church. You know why? Because the Catholic Church wanted to own all the science. Because they seen the truth that's in science. So they wanted to, but they didn't want you and me to know that. You know, and I could say things like that, and people in church just don't think. You don't ever think most of the time if you go to high church or if you go to religious church and ceremony. All you do is you're either sat there and you're entertained or you're bored. Whichever, you know, it just depends on how much charisma the choir's got or the preacher's got. Thus, they were able to find the adequate ground for the harmonization of science and religion. They saw spirit begetting power and power begetting matter. Okay? Spirit and matter were but two aspects of one essence. I like that. Matter is nothing other than the crystallization of spirit on the outer periphery of its emittive range. The ancients worshipped not nature, but the power behind nature. But they looked into nature. You know, and that's what I found out a lot by going to Egypt and by looking for myself at the everything that's there is mysterious. It's just mysterious. It's not only is it massive and big, but the structure. It looks like it's impossible to do this. There's not any way this can be done, but yet it's done that way. So if you found this place in Isaiah chapter 5, I just a flash went through me. I want to show you something in Isaiah chapter 1. We'll come back to Isaiah 5. Isaiah chapter 1. Verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? Now that's a Selah verse. Now this, of course, is God saying this through Isaiah to the children of Israel, to the Jews, if you want to call them, Judah, the tribe of Judah, the Jews, or to the nation of Jerusalem, or the Israelites. This is God through Isaiah speaking. And God says, I mean, you know, you'd say, whoa, wait a minute. This goes back and sounds very contradictory to the book of Leviticus, because that's all the book of Leviticus is about. Watch what it says. To what purpose is a multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I am full of burnt offerings, of rams, and the fat of fed beasts. I delight not in the blood. wow, this is a very strong accusation. Sounds like God's not really pleased with, and yet what do? We in religion are taught to honor that. We had to have a blood sacrifice. Hello? I mean, you know, we're right here at this season that blood sacrifice is it. And if we ain't got it, we in deep doo-doo. And he says very clearly, and I'm reading out of the King James, I mean the Authorized Bible. I mean the real deal. Here's what I'm talking about. This is the real deal. Yeah. And God's not too pleased with that stuff. So, you know, is this book full of contradictions? It sure is, but these contradictions are conundrums, and if you don't realize there is truth in both ends of the spectrum, that's the problem. Throw out one truth and try to embrace another, and we get out of balance. So back with me to Isaiah chapter 5. I want you to see this because it says, verse 13, therefore, my people are gone into captivity. Actually, the word captivity in Hebrew is the Hebrew word goeth. Goeth. And the word means denude. Do you understand what the word denude means? Well, we neutered, when I was a little boy, I remember we used to neuter the hogs at this time of year, a year ago. We would neuter the hogs, a month ago. That was a very common, I can see it to this very moment, how we would do it, and them hogs would squeal. and they were really loud. I can see it, I remember we denuded the hogs. Do you understand what that word means? It means that it's used in a metaphoric sense. It's used in a way that simply means that your words does not have the sperm in the seed. They're just words. You got, that's what that word means. So, therefore, my people are denuded. In other words, their word don't mean anything. Has no power and no purpose. Why? Because they have no knowledge. You know, and the word knowledge, I want to put this up here. Now, this little dotted circle, the Trinity, everything that is comes out of the Trinity, right? Everybody can agree with that, right? Everything comes out of light, life, and love. In other words, God, the source, whatever that is, the sun, which is just a symbol. How can you define God? You can't. God is indefinable. And some places say God is unknowable. You can't know all the aspects of God. It's impossible. Because God is. And what is is everything. There's nothing it's not. It is. It just is. So that's what, so light is only the symbol of that which is, but out of that which is. The only way that which is can materialize or manifest itself was actually to divide itself or to split itself and make it male, which has the seed of life, as long as it's not denuded, and female, which has the womb of life. And so from that, materialization, manifestation can come about. That's the Trinity. We taught to call that Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. You know, it would be more accurate to say the source, the male, and the female. And it's from that you can produce all the children that you like, as many as you want. But you know, we're taught, either way we're taught the Trinity because the Trinity is the root and the foundation of all truth. But in Kabbalah, ancient Hebrew, that's what Kabbalah is. Job says very clearly in Job chapter 2, Can we not receive? And the word receive is kabal. That's the Hebrew word kabal. And it actually means to be an antenna, to receive the signal. What is the signal? The signal is whatever, the voice of God. The instructions of God. Whatever God is saying or doing. Can we not receive? Kabbalah has this dotted circle between the Trinity and the second Trinity, which produces a third Trinity. And so you actually have three Trinities. You have to really kind of pay attention to that. This is, in Hebrew, this is called the Kabbalistic tree of life. And then it has the Malkut, which is the foundation, or I would call this the planet or the earth, the ground. It's grounded on that. You have three sets of threes. And this little dotted circle, which is there, but it's not there, because it's actually, they're put there in the dot because you can't see it, because there's no physicality about it whatsoever. But this is called, in Hebrew, D-A-A-T-H, De'ath. And what De'ath is translated as is knowledge. It's not the only word translated as knowledge, but it's used a lot as knowledge, because it's knowledge that doesn't come to you because you have read a lot of books. Now, I realize there is a method to gain knowledge that way. This is knowledge that comes outside the ability to read a book. You know, it's like, honestly, at this point on the earth, Sadhguru is one of the most knowledgeable men that I know of on a broad spectrum. I see him, you can go on there and you can Google him sitting down with quantum scientists. And this man says that he's never read a book. And they have a lot of quizzes, a lot of quantum scientists, a lot of intelligent people who've read multitudes of books. You don't become a quantum scientist if you ain't read a lot of books. But quantum scientists are asking this man, how do you have this wisdom and knowledge, both of the physical anatomy, how it works, and the structure of the universe? Where does he get that knowledge? He says he doesn't read books. I don't think the man's a liar. I think he's telling the truth. He doesn't read books. Where does he get the knowledge? He tells you where he gets it. Through contemplation, through meditation, through silence, through the realm. Well, it's only in silence where the voice of God's at. That's what Scripture tells you. It's in the voice of God is found in the silence. And the silence is the very place that we don't go. It's hard to close down everything. It's hard to shut the TV down. It's hard to shut all of the noise down and just practice silence. Most people say, I will go crazy. But that's the De'at. That's what begins to unveil the mysteries of the unknown and bring them forth. This is the unknown, brings them forth into the known, or the manifestation, or the materialization. And this passage is saying that we have been denuded from this kind of knowledge. In other words, we have all been castrated. Religion has done a number on us and castrated us so that we are not able to tap into this unknown knowledge that is there and exists. It's given to us. God's constantly given that to us. And if you took this and you said 3, 3, and 3, you'd have what? 9. Exactly. You'd have 9. And what is 9? 9 is the magical number. In Hebrew, the number 9 is called the mystical female. The energy of continued production. You can take 9 and multiply it times any number and take gematria and reduce that number back, and every time it'll come back to the number 9. If you took the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you took the first 8 glyphs in the Hebrew alphabet and you added them together, just keep adding them in gematria, you would come up with this number. So if you took every one of these numbers and added them together, that's the number it would be, 36. And if you took 36 and added it together, it would be what?
9.
Which is the next number. Is that, you know, what, is that a miracle? Isn't that really strange? And it doesn't matter. You can take any number you want to. You can take 1,216, multiply it times 9, and then do gematria on it, and it'll come back to 9 every time. I mean, it's totally a mystery how it does it, but it does. And that's the only number you can do that with. You can't do that with any other number. See, numbers were not invented. There's no religion that invented this system. The Hebrew alphabet is an alphabet that's both numerical and alphabetical. So it has both number and each glyph. They didn't invent that. They discovered it. It was found. These numbers nobody invented them. Said, well, let's just do this. Let's just come up with these numbers. No, they found these. They discovered these numbers. They weren't invented. So the word da'at, knowledge, actually means awareness. And I have said quite a bit about that over the last few months in different ways, because something that come to me, I guess a year or so ago, and it was from a teaching that I did here, and I said that we are not waking up. We are becoming aware of what's going on. Awareness is where I pay attention to what's going on in my surroundings. And most of the time, we're not doing that. We're not doing it doesn't mean we're asleep. We're just not paying attention. And the word, I go back to a word that some preachers use, even some preachers I really like use, and they say that we are all in a deep sleep that God put Adam in and never woke him up. And that goes back to trying to make the Garden of Eden story literal, and it's not. And when it says that God caused a deep sleep to come upon Adam, Aleph Dalit Mem, which is a glyphs that mean humanity or physicality or the manifestation of material humans. That's what it means. It's not a man's name. And it says, and God caused deep sleep to come on him. Tardama is the word for deep sleep, tardama, and it actually says he sunk his soul, the mind of God, deep into that man. There's no sleep about it. It just simply means that the soul of the universe is sunk deep into my physicality. It's in there if I'll just listen, and because I go into myself to find myself, not outside. Do you follow what I'm saying? But yet, that because of that King James translation from the Hebrew, which is in error, it's wrong. But because of that, we have all been duped by that idea. And I've said it many times myself. You can go back and listen to my CDs old, and I would say, oh, well, y'all just all asleep. We're just asleep. It's not true. We can be wide awake. I hope you slept last night. Did y'all get a good night's sleep? I got a pretty good night's sleep. Yeah. But today I'm awake. Maybe not always aware, and maybe not always paying attention. And that's something that I personally would like to work on for myself, where that I am paying attention and I am becoming aware, not only of my surroundings, but of what's been said or what's happening or what's going on. If I become aware of that, and that's what this word means, awareness. Knowledge, awareness. All right, go with me to Hosea. Hosea, over there, just a little book. Okay, Hosea chapter 4, and I want to read you. Y'all familiar here? I know you're familiar with the emerald tablet. I want to read you something from the emerald tablet. It says, "Listen, O man, take my wisdom. Learn of the deep hidden mysteries of space. Learn of the thought that grew in the abyss, bringing order and harmony in space." Now, think about that. What is it? Bringing order and harmony in space. And the reason I said that is because everything in space operates on that principle. You can call that principle a law. The law of order and harmony. That's God's, I would say that would be God's sovereign order. Yet in Christianity, I know I was taught, and I actually taught some for the first few years of my pastoring, that there was chaos in the heavens, and there was a rebellion that took place. And out of that rebellion is what happened to us, or happened to me on the earth, because it was out of that rebellion that these angelic forces turned against God and decided to destroy God's creation called the earth, or at least God's man on the earth. Y'all ever hear that story? Probably every one of you pretty much, that the angels come down here and that's what happened to Adam and Eve in the garden, that they were provoked. That's a pretty common story. It's not true. You think about that, if God knows the beginning from the end, would there be some host that would come in and interrupt that idea? God would not know it? That would be kind of absurd. Know ye, O man, that all that exists has been only because of the law. Know ye the law, and you shall be free. Never be bound by the fetters of darkness. Far through the strange spaces have I journeyed into the depth of the abyss of time, learning strange and yet stranger mysteries, until in the end all was revealed. Know ye that mysteries is only mysteries when it is knowledge unknown to man. So is knowledge key? Absolutely. Knowledge, deot, is the key. It is the major key to truth. You will not know truth without knowledge. Knowledge is what unveils and what brings us to the truth. When you have plumbed the heart of all mysteries, knowledge and wisdom will surely be yours. That's what the Emerald Tablet has to say about that. So, Hosea, if you found that place, Hosea chapter 4, look at verse 16. My people are destroyed. Destroyed, you see that word, that's a dama, and actually means they have been silenced or dumb. Now Isaiah says that they've been denuded. Hosea says they've been dumbed. Dumb means not speaking, so that if they're not able to speak, they're not able to release the seed. Isaiah talked about a seed that has no potency to it. And here Hosea is saying that they don't even have a seed. That's what he's referring to. They're dumb. That's what it means. They're destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Again, the same identical word knowledge is deot, right there, deot.
Where were we reading from?
I'm Hosea 4, verse 6.
I thought you said
You said
16. No
16.
wonder I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I was looking
Oh,
up now.
6, verse 6, I'm sorry.
There it is.
Verse 6, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Look at verse 1, this same passage, Hosea 4:1. Hear the word of the Lord, you children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because, he has three controversies here, because, what does he say? There's no truth.
Or mercy.
There's no mercy,
Nor knowledge.
and there's no knowledge. So, what would you say that God would really be looking for and honoring? Truth, mercy, and knowledge. You think about that. Truth, mercy, and knowledge. And again, you have three aspects to that. Truth, mercy, and knowledge, which I think you could correlate to light, life, and love. Truth, mercy, and knowledge. No truth. Look at John 18. This is where Jesus talks about this John 18. John chapter 18 and verse 36 says, and Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I would not be delivered unto the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. Pilate therefore said unto him, are you a king then? And Jesus answered, thou sayest that I am. And to this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth hears my voice. Pilate said unto him, what is the truth? And there again, that's always, what is truth? And Hosea said, well, the people are, that's one of the things they don't have. They do not have the truth. Because Jesus said in John 8, it is the truth. Well, let's just go back there and look at that. John 8, you're just real close there. Flip back a few pages. John 8:32. And what does it say? You shall know, that's the Greek word gnosko, which is an intuitive knowledge that comes from within you. It doesn't come from outside you. It comes from within you. You shall know. Gnosko. It hadn't got to do with what you believe. Most people think that I believe the truth. Oh, really? How did you get that? Well, I went to church and they taught me. They taught me to believe this and to believe that. They taught me 12 major beliefs. I believe in, I believe in, I believe in. And all of these beliefs they taught me were outside me. They were things outside me. Every one of them was outside me. But where does this say? You shall know. Gnosko, Greek gnosto, that's what the word means. It means it's within you. It's intuitive. It's rooted in the depth of your being. That's where God's at. You shall know the truth. And again, Pilate said, well, what is the truth? The truth is that which is within you, deep within your very being. John 8:32. And so I want to close with this simple truth that's found right here in the Scriptures. Matthew chapter 2. You hear that? Y'all hear that little baby? He's doing his number, ain't he? He's telling everybody he is out there, buddy. Y'all go out and look at him. He's cute as a button. Just a little bitty thing.
You don't realize how little he is, though.
He don't have a clue that he's little. He thinks he's big. Until that peacock comes around. When that peacock comes around, he kind of backs away. Okay, Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. And this is, we are approaching this time right now of an astrological phenomenon that will take place in just a few days. It's an astrological phenomenon that is the truth, and it happens every year, and most all ancient mythologies are built on this truth. And the reason they're built on this truth is because it is a truth, non-negotiable. And it's true. But yet, if we don't know how to see it or how to read it, if we can't see it because we're blind, or we're not aware, or we're just not paying attention, then we can be deceived about this truth. Verse 1, Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, there came wise men. Did any of you have a note reference in your Bible there that tells you what wise men are? My Bible is an annotated note reference Bible, and mine says, it takes me over wise men, it takes me to note Q, it says Greek magi. That's what the word is, magi. Do y'all know what a magi is?
Astrologer.
A magi is an astrologer. He's an astrologer. He is an Egyptian astrologer. That's why you'll see it, and I've seen it everywhere. Matter of fact, you can go right down the road here, turn left, the first road, and you go down there just a little ways, and you'll see. No, I'm sorry, it's not that. It's turn left, go down this way, and you will see 3 Egyptian camels with 3 wise men on it.
Yeah.
Those were Egyptian magi's. In other words, and people don't know this. They think that this is some Greek or some Hebrew priests that come to give gifts to baby Jesus.
Or kings, because there's a song out there, We Three Kings.
We 3 kings, yeah.
Kings.
But
They're from
they're Egyptian astrologers. I mean, it even tells you that. If they had translated it that way, and actually I said something here a couple of weeks ago, and Clara texted me, the passage I was looking for was actually in Acts 7, and the one that I was really trying to quote was in Revelations where Jesus was crucified. But the wisdom that he gained was from his Egyptian knowledge, which is in Acts chapter 7. I was just somehow or another crossing him up in my mind.
Moses.
Moses. So it says, these wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that's born the King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and we come to worship him. Go with me to the Gospel of John, chapter 3. We were over there. John chapter 3. Now this story that we are also familiar with this time of year is an astrological story, and it's a story about the S-U-N, and we have made it a story about the S-O-N. Did y'all get that?
Yes.
It is a story about the S-U-N, and the S-U-N and its movement on the astrological wheel. This is June 21st. This is December the 21st. And most all ancient mythologies are built on those 2 dates, as well as the New Testament scripture are built on these 2 dates. And it's the symbol and the story of the S-U-N and its journey through the year as it travels. And what happens on June the 21st, this is called the longest day.
Equinox.
It's the longest, exactly, it's the longest day of the equinox, June the 21st. After June the 21st, the days begin to shorten. John the Baptist was born on June the 21st. That's all you have to do. He was born 6 months before Jesus. That's the story. You can read it in Luke's translation. Luke tells you more about that than Matthew does. He was born on June the 21st, and here's what happens. The sun from June the 21st to December the 21st, the sun lessens every day by a minute or so. Every day, the sun's daylight time lessens, decreases. Starting December the 21st, which is this coming Wednesday, a few days from today, it's the 19th, right? Starting December the 21st, the sun will begin to increase. This happens every year. It don't matter whether you like it or love it or not, whatever. Did you know in I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and I talked about the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. Did you know that before the Julian calendar, the first of the year started on March the 21st instead of January the 1st? But every time they change a date, it goes back to some astrological story. I mean, it really does. Every one of them, just like with the Hebrew. When was the Passover? The Passover was March the 21st, which always would follow on a moon cycle. because that again is astrological. So on June the 21st, the sun begins to decrease. Now what did John say? Right here, you go to John chapter 3. Did y'all find that?
Yep.
John chapter 3. Look at verse 30. This is what John said. What does he say?
You must increase.
He must increase. On December the 21st, you see Jesus is born, because the symbol of the story is Jesus is born on the 25th, right? And so the sun, the S-U-N, it begins to increase. And then on June the 21st, John's born, the sun begins to decrease. Now, you know, I know how you and I have always took that. I know how you were taught in religion to take that. I have to just lesser and lesser of me and more of him. Which is not a bad idea, you know, to get yourself out of the way and to get your whatever, your puffed up self out of the way and get the Spirit of God in there. But it's not talking about that. It's actually talking about the length of the days, the increase and the decrease of the days. And so all of this is drawn from this astrological story of the sun. This is where the truth, the dayot, is at. And the energy of that that's coming forth, and you can check this out if you like it. I mean, I'm not saying you need to study astrology. It wouldn't hurt a thing if we did, but I am saying that it is a common fact, and stories are drawn from this. So this story that we have, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is drawn from this movement of the sun in so many different ways and different aspects. And so you can take it and you can correlate many of these events that happen in Scripture to the movement of the sun through the astrological wheel and its different positions at different times of the year.
When you first put that dot up there, as that's how people see God, it kind of threw this thing in my mind, like how? How in the world? Then I got thinking, well, that little dot is the seed that actually has the universe in that seed. But then after you drew that little circle there and you've got your little cross, that dot is where all of them meet together. They can't touch one another. Some of them don't touch one another, but right there in the middle, they all come together right there. All
That's it. That's why this is called the bonehead. That's the idea of everything that is. There's nothing that is that didn't come from that.
And nothing is hidden there because they all are like right there meeting and they know what's going on. Where if they spread out like that, they've got their own thoughts and they only have a thought with the one beside them. But right there in the middle, it's just like they're all together.
That's why I always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Because it opens up a whole different vista. You can say that, but when you visualize it, it makes a huge difference. You can see clearer. You know, I can see clearer now. Okay.
The rain is gone.